Let's go with you, because I think I know where Rebecca's coming down on this. What about it? Postal mailmen shouldn't have to adhere to traffic laws?
You know what? The Postal Service did not word that well. They have to adhere to the traffic laws, but if they don't adhere to the traffic laws, they're immune, which means the federal government has federal immunity, and so do its employees. So if a postal worker violates the traffic laws or even commits a negligent act on the road, they can't be sued and they can't be prosecuted, and nobody can recover any money from the federal government.
What do you think, Rebecca?
I think that, quite frankly, is an inappropriate position for the Postal Service to take. There is a limited liability and immunity to liability with the Postal Service in that it is a federal agency. So they're saying, hey, as a state, Cleveland, you can't collect from us. But then they said in their letter, oh, but we'll still apply and adhere to the laws. Well, how are you adhering to laws if you're not paying when you break them?
Sure, if there's no penalty to break the law, how many people are going to pay attention to the law?
They're really not going to pay attention, and I hate to say it because I don't want to advocate this awful position on their behalf, but they don't really have to. There's a difference, though, if one of the postal workers gets into a postal truck and they're drunk and they drive on the road, that individual can be prosecuted for drunken driving, but you can't go sue the Postal Service for acts that resulted from the drunk driving. Federal immunity. It's broad. It covers everything.
Here's a dumb question. Do they not need insurance then on their trucks?
They're self-insured because there are ways around that. If the post office knew, with Stacy's example, that their driver had a tendency to be drunk and they should have pulled him off the road, the same way we have with police officers. If there's a predilection to problems that we know about prior, then the post office could be responsible. So there's so many little weird ins and outs, but the reality is, hey, your drivers, in this case, they claim, Cleveland, that there's a red light and some violations on speed.
Right. You know what drives me crazy? Well, it drives me absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, tell us.
Is when I'm looking for a parking spot and there's a guy with a diplomat plate who parks right in front of a fire hydrant.
You are completely out of luck. I mean, forget it. Diplomatic immunity, you can't even get past that for a second. Postal immunity, when somebody's injured, there might be a way around. But you know what? The government almost has the same exact situation.
So let me ask
you.
So if I want a spot and the diplomat wants a spot too, I get the spot. He can actually run me over with his car and not have any recourse?
Well, if that individual caused you bodily injury, then as an individual, they can be prosecuted. But under the auspices of they were doing their duty for the federal government, you might be out of luck.
All feds have this immunity?
No,
they do.
No, it's very, I'm telling you, there are ways around it, but the way our Constitution set up these governmental authorities, they can't pay revenue to a state. So the post office can't pay revenue to Ohio. So that's how this letter was drafted. Well, we can't pay, and we can't, there's no mechanism for us to send money to you, so we're immune. Not really. You can't go through red lights with a post office truck because we found that in another state, unfortunately, a driver did cause a very bad traffic accident. He was held responsible, as was the post office.
You know what's the most amazing thing here?
Well, how did that happen, though?
That the
in another state, an example where someone ran over somebody, hurt someone.
Hurt very badly.
The driver was held responsible, but also the post office paid.
Yes, yes, they did.
A settlement.
The reason that's happening is because all the states have to work under the auspices of federal immunity, but some states are getting around it and finding these loopholes in the law to hold the Postal Service responsible. It doesn't happen all the time, and you need a really good lawyer to get through this federal immunity. It's like a bulletproof vest, and it's really tough to breach. But the funny thing I was going to say to you is the federal government is spending all this money to litigate $700 worth of tickets.
We're going to have to leave it there. That's Rebecca.